Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dabo Swinney, the Clemson Tigers, working their way through spring practice. And I think for a lot of Clemson fans that, follow this program pretty dang closely, you'd probably agree with the statement that we're hearing all the right things coming out from this Clemson program during spring practice. And it's gotten real for Clemson, right? You are two scrimmages in. You got your spring game coming up, not this weekend, but next weekend. You're starting to get a feel for what this team is going to look like in 2025. And I think just as importantly, you're getting a feel for, hey, who are the players that are emerging coming out of spring practice that can be dudes, can be difference makers for Clemson in the 2025 year. Want to get into, I think, some of the more intriguing storylines that we've seen come out of Clemson spring practice. Talk about maybe some questions we still want to see answered. Now, before we get into it, as always, the Clemson fans, appreciate you guys. And, let it fly in the comment section. There's a lot of different takeaways that you can have during the first 2/3 of spring practice. Would love to hear from y'all in the comment section. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Many of y'all who've been rocking with the fellas for a while know this is a team that I think can win a national championship, going to be one of the best teams in all of college football. And this is going to be a really fun team to talk about over the next couple of weeks and months. And without further ado, let's get into it. I want to start with some overall thoughts. And I think the biggest thought that I have as we work our way through spring practice is what is coming out about Tom Allen, and more specifically, like what Tom Allen has said about this Clemson defense. And what excites me the most is that Tom Allen is very vocal that we are going to simplify this defense and we're going to do the fundamentals better than what we did in the 2024 year. And you look at potentially what went wrong with Wes Goodwin in the 2024 year. Wes Goodwin's a very smart football mind. We all know that. And there's a balance between, hey, can we get really complicated with our scheme, do a lot of different things to, confuse opposing quarterbacks, confuse opposing offensive coordinators. But at the same time, can it not be too complicated where our defense, that's really dang talented, is playing slow and playing confused? I think in 2024, you saw Wes Goodwin not walk that line very well, where it was like, hey, we got a really talented Clemson defense. We're trying to do a little bit too much. And the fundamentals kind of broke down for Clemson in the 2024 year. Tom Allen's come in and said, hey, we're going to focus on doing the fundamentals at a very high level. And we think that's going to help our defense. Now, why should that excite Clemson fans? Why does it excite me? It excites me because you look at this Clemson defense and say, we don't need to get all that fancy with our scheme. We got one of the best defenses from a personnel, from a talent standpoint. We got one of the best defenses in the country. Go let your players go make plays. Now, if you're coaching a team like Wake Forest, maybe you got to get a little bit more creative with the scheme because you don't have the players that Clemson does on defense. But when you're as talented as Clemson is on defense, specifically in the front seven, it doesn't have to be all that complicated. Go make sure your players are playing fast and physical and know what they're doing. Because if you get that, chances are you're going to have a pretty dang good defense. I look at this Clemson defense, and you can count on, you're pushing double-digit names that are going to be NFL guys. You run down through this roster: T.J. Parker, NFL dude; Peter Woods, NFL dude; DeMonte Capar, NFL dude; Will Heldt, NFL dude. Even going to the 2 deep, Amari Adams is going to play in the NFL. It's going to take him a couple of years. He's going to get to the NFL. Sammy Brown, Wade Woodaz, Avian Terrell, Ashton Hampton. This is an NFL caliber defense. We just got to do our part in terms of, hey, let's simplify this thing. Let's let them go play fast, physical, know what they're doing. Chances are that's going to help. And you've seen Clemson make that move where it's like, we're not going to try to be as complicated as Wes Goodwin was in 2024. We're going to be relatively simple. We're going to let our players go out and make plays. That's going to matter for this Clemson defense. Now, getting into a few intriguing storylines, I want to start with Will Heldt. Every time you listen to Dabo Swinney, every time you listen to some of the Clemson beat writers talk about what they saw in spring practice, Will Heldt's name continues to get brought up. And what excites me the most about Will Heldt is he's only getting better as a football player. Go back to the 2024 year where he was, one of the better edge defenders in the Big Ten at Purdue. He was a sophomore. He's a second-year guy. He's only going into year 3, and he's only going into year 3 as a guy that at the high school ranks played a lot of off-ball linebacker. Like, the trajectory with this kid is going up in the right direction relatively quickly. And so not only do you know you're getting a really good football player because we saw that on the film from him at Purdue in 2024, you're getting a guy that is continuing to get better as a football player as well. I look at Will Heldt and say this seems to be a massive addition, and this Clemson front seven is going to be a problem. And I couldn't think of a better defensive coordinator to give an elite front seven to. Tom Allen, he is a master at getting after and maximizing a very good front seven. We saw that last year at Penn State. This front seven for Clemson looks to be very good. And I think Tom Allen's licking his chops in terms of how we're going to use this front seven to really be disruptive in 2025. Number 2 storyline, and probably the biggest look, we ain't got that many question marks about this Clemson defense. And this defensive line is talented and deep. The linebacker room is one of the better linebacker rooms that you see in the conference, potentially the country. Cornerbacks in Avion Throw and Ashton Hampton. Well, we know what we're getting there. I think the question is, hey, what is the safety room going to look like? You've heard good things about 2 different players. One, Ricardo Jones, who is my personal pick to really break out in the 2025 year. This kid is long. He's a ball hawk. He knows how to get his hands on the football. I'm really excited to see what Ricardo Jones looks like in 2025, and you're hearing the right things from him coming out of spring practice. Then the other one's Kylan Griffin, who kind of, I think, flies under the radar because he's been with the program a little bit longer. You have some other young names that are getting more excitement. Now, he's dealing with an injury right now, but through the first half of spring practice, you've heard some really good things about Kylan Griffin. And I think one of the things that stands out is just one thing to hear that a guy like Cade Klubnik's looking good, or hear that a guy like TJ Parker's looking good. Look, we know they're going to be good football players in 2025. We want to hear about the positions we have questions about that are starting to stand out. That's, to me, the overarching goal about spring practice is, hey, can we answer some of the questions that we have going into 2025? And one of the questions that I think a lot of us had was, how good are these safeties going to be? You're hearing the right things coming out of spring practice. Now going up to the offensive side of the football, and it's the crazy thing is like this is the most confident I've been in the Clemson offense in a very long time. You saw Dabo Swinney to the media get after Cade Klubnik a little bit after that first spring scrimmage before they went on spring break. There's not many other programs that can do that. Like, there's not many head coach quarterback combinations where the head coach can go to the media and say our quarterback's not doing what he needs to. He's obviously responded. Obviously had a really good second spring scrimmage. The expectation, I think what this is hey, Dabo Swinney's like, we know what you are, Cade. Now it's like we're gonna hold you to that standard. You are a Heisman caliber quarterback. We need you to be a Heisman caliber quarterback in the 2025 year if we want to go win a national championship. And you're hearing Cade rebound. That's exciting. The big question mark that we wanted an answer to was the running back room. It's just we don't necessarily know what we have. When you look at it, David E's going into year 2. Haven't seen a ton of him. Gideon Davidson is a guy that we're all very excited about, but he's going to be a true freshman. And then you have Adam Randall, who's a former wide receiver that's now making the switch to running back. There's 2 things that excite me the most. One, regarding Gideon Davidson. Dabo Swinney used the word consistent. And that's the only word I care about when it comes to Gideon Davidson. Look, it's one thing to flash as a true freshman because you're very, very gifted, which Gideon Davidson is. That doesn't mean you're going to get on the football field. If you want to get on the football field as a true freshman, especially at the running back position, you got to be consistent. You got to be able to hold on to the football. You got to be able to operate in pass protection. Gideon Davidson, or Dabo Swinney, I should say, used the term consistent with Gideon Davidson. That's about as positive a feedback as I think you could have imagined if you're a Clemson fan in terms of the chances Gideon Davidson has as being a year 1 impact guy for Clemson. Him being consistent, really big. The second thing is Adam Randall. Dabo Swinney, I think this was his quote, it's even better than we could have imagined. Adam Randall making the switch from wide receiver to running back. Now, I don't think any of us know how this is going to look, but there are some things that intrigue you about Adam Randall. Number one, he is a very gifted physical specimen, 6'3", 225 plus pounds. That is, when healthy, just a difference maker with the football in his hands. How many carries a game does Adam Randall get? Can he stay healthy for 12 plus games at the running back position? Those are all question marks we have, but there at least should be, at least for me, like some underlying excitement in terms of how Adam Randall gets used in this Clemson offense. And you're hearing, again, some of the good things. We've seen this type of situation play out, right? Cordell Patterson in the NFL, guy like Debo Samuel. You've seen wide receivers make not necessarily a full-time switch, but be used as a running back at times and have a lot of success. Like, if there's anybody who can do it, if there's anybody who's physically gifted enough to do it, it's Adam Randall. And to me, it's about, hey, can we stay healthy? And what's the role going to look like? The last one is Tristan Smith. When Tristan Smith committed to Clemson out of the transfer portal, the bigger storyline was that was the first transfer portal commitment Clemson landed during the offseason. The bigger storyline was, Dabo Swinney is using the transfer portal a little bit. I don't think anybody had expectations that he was going to come in and be a difference maker for Clemson in the wide receiver room. Because you look at it and say, all right, well, TJ Moore, Brian Wesco going into year two, Antonio Williams coming back, Tyler Brown's coming back from injury. I think a lot of Clemson fans were like, that's interesting that Clemson decided to go get a wide receiver when you have 4 really good wide receivers coming back in 2025. Well, I think we're getting our answer why. Because Tristan Smith, they love this kid. And he's been playing really good in spring practice. My question is, all right, what's his role going to be? To me, it's hard to see him being a full-time starter just because you're so good with your starting 3. But he's a 6'5", 200-plus pound, like, unique physical specimen that has the ability to impact this Clemson offense, specifically in the red zone. When those throwing windows get a little bit tight, that space gets a little bit condensed, big body pass catcher that has a really big catch radius. You talk about Clemson's goals in 2025, it's like win an ACC championship, win a national championship. Well, red zone efficiency, it's like that small conversation that kind of separates, hey, a really good team that gets bounced in the second round of the playoffs to a team that can win a national championship. You operate better in the red zone. Can Tristan Smith give Clemson a little bit of juice in the red zone? Another question. I don't know what it's going to look like for Tristan Smith, but you're hearing some really exciting things out of this cat as well. I didn't need spring practice to tell me that this Clemson team is going to be really good in 2025, but you're hearing a lot of really exciting things, and I think that should excite a lot of Clemson fans as well. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.